Karl and Jordan here with Dwell Realty Group, and we are looking at market reports today because we get asked a lot, is now a good time to buy? Well, we're going to take a look at these key insights and show you what kind of seller's market it is to help inform you to make a good decision. First thing I'll point out, Karl, is month to month, we got market averages jumping about 5,000 and market medians jumping about 10,000. So that's my first observation from April to May. That's pretty on par for what you expect as we ramp up in the spring to summer months. Yeah, what are some key observations that you've seen when looking over these documents?
Well, I think for me, I've been watching these for every single month for the past 8 years or so. And this year has been an incredible year where things drastically changed in the middle of January and early February. I think not just in our local market here, but nationally as well. So again, as we revisit these every month, one of the key things we're taking away is just how low of an inventory market we have right now.
Yeah.
So again, that's great when looking at from a seller's perspective, driving up prices with the same demand, if not more.
Yeah.
But from a buyer's perspective, it's a really difficult market to secure a home in right now.
Yeah.
Month to month, we don't have a whole lot of change in a key real estate term that's called the absorption rate. This is saying we have about 1 month of inventory here. This is saying we have about 1.1 months of inventory. That's for all price ranges in the 4 zip codes of Rochester. If we were to look at the stats for the number of homes sold in the past 6 months here in May and in April, I think we may have a little bit more spring sales here, 924 as opposed to 889.
Oh, interesting.
But as you break it down by price range in $50,000 increments, the same remains true that the hottest price range is 200 to 250.
Yeah.
And then the neighbors around that are second and third with respect to number of homes sold.
Yeah, wow. I mean, look at the absorption rate on all of these. Sub 1 month, meaning if no new inventory pops up, all the inventory that's out there is gone in less than a month.
That's right.
Wow. And that's applicable in both months. And even when you the first price point is that we see over a month, which is less than a month and a half still, is at 350 to 400,000, and even more. So in May, we get 400,000 to 450 is we get to 1 month absorption, which is incredibly low. I mean, basically that's, like you said, that's speaking to an incredibly great seller's market right now.
That's right.
And we've talked about we have other videos on what to do, what some opportunities you can take as a seller or as a buyer in a market like this, some things to help you get a win. But basically we can lean into talking about if you're wanting to list your house, now is a great time to do it. Inventory is tight. There's a lot of factors going on in the world that have affected that, obviously, and also inventory is tight because building costs are up. So it's not just one thing. I know, a lot of people like to say, well, what's the number one thing? And like certainly pandemic's part of it, certainly inventory being low, certainly Rochester growing rapidly. It's all those things, right? Are there any other things beyond those, or any of those that you have thoughts on as to why inventory is so tight? Do you have any thoughts on that?
No. I mean, really, we're learning as we go every month here. I think a big thing that plays into a low inventory market is if people are to sell their home, then where are they going to go?
Yeah.
Where are they going to move? And a lot of the times people think about their next home purchase with respect to what's it going to cost them on a monthly basis. So with prices being inflated, it's almost a lateral move sometimes, and people are just saying, I'm going to hold out and maybe wait till prices might drop. Who knows when that will be? That's
very interesting, because you would think if you own a home, if you weren't in that situation yourself, you would say, well, boy, if my home increases in value, I'm going to sell it. But of course, if you are in that situation, you do, like you said, think about, but I have to find a home to buy.
That's right.
So it actually is sort of a vicious cycle. Low inventory might be suppressing inventory because it's keeping prices up.
Yes.
Wow, that's very interesting.
For the people that are, moving out of state, that's a whole different thing where they don't necessarily need to think about a local home to secure. But another very interesting thing that I've noticed is this is the first time I've ever seen single-digit numbers for median days on market for both 200 to 250 and 250 to 300,000.
Wow.
It's incredible.
Because in April, we were still at the lowest possible before single at 10 for each of these price ranges, but then we dropped to 9 and 8 respectively for 250 to 300 and 200 to 250. Wow. So Karl, we looked at month to month, and we talked a little about market averages and market medians. I want to point to the sold and closed market averages and medians. So the final closed price is what I'm interested in here. 290 for market averages. This year we're at 313. That's an increase of 23,000. For market medians, 245 last year, 267 this year. That's an increase of 22,000. So that's a pretty big change year over year. I don't have that expressed as a percentage, but I mean that's a bigger than normal jump.
Yes.
We also see, you know, obviously we were in pandemic, we had some things going on in this world, but we had inventory that was around for a little bit. Me and my wife actually bought right before May, and some stuff was here for a little bit. Here, year later, the most you're gonna get is 3.2 months or 5.7 if you're 800 or more. So obviously stuff's moving even faster, and we would have described this as pretty close to a seller's market in most scenarios. So
right.
Yeah, what are your key observations year to year?
Even just the color-coded visual depiction of are we in a hot seller's market or a cool buyer's market is drastically different year to year. And again, as we mentioned before, inventory is down an incredible amount. You can see last year at this time, there were 339 homes on the market. Now we're down to 165. Another very interesting observation that I've seen is I watch these pending ratios, and a pending ratio takes the number of homes pending or under contract and adds the number of active listings to that to get the pending ratio.
Yeah.
And this year, I've never seen numbers in the 70s and low 80%.
Basically saying how quickly these go under contract and move to pending compared to inventory.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Okay, so we've dove into the data, but I think it's important now practically, what does that mean for our viewers? Someone who's looking to buy a home, what sort of advice would you give them right now?
Well, a lot of people are asking, should I even buy right now in this crazy market? And what we're seeing and hoping for is that things are likely either going to stay the same or increase. I don't think prices are going to go down. So yes, real estate is still a great investment and it's still a good time to buy. I think strategically, to find an agent that has experience and knowledge about how to put together the best offer possible to secure a home in this market. We've had many conversations this year on strategies that we've never had to talk about before.
This market's really good for sellers right now. With that in mind, what would you tell a buyer that's wondering, like, should I even jump in right now? What would you say to them, Karl?
I think at this point, I would recommend to not sit on the sidelines. It's still a great time to own and buy real estate. I think it's even more so important for people to be linked up with a great agent.
Because they can help them navigate the challenges of making a competitive offer. And I think to your point, the reason you don't want to sit on the sidelines right now is we don't have strong signs. Inventory is tight, and it's gotten tighter, and we don't have strong signs. Building costs are up. We have several other things that are leading us to believe that there's no inventory that's just gonna fill the market. Right now, we're so tight in inventory, we're especially even further from surplus of inventory.
Yes, I totally agree. Basically, it's still a great time to buy. The market's trending upward. You just have to be ready to be very competitive in this market.
That's great. Thanks for taking some time to look at these documents with me, and we will do this again in about a quarter.
Sounds great.
If you have any questions at all or need to reach out to a real estate agent, look us up at dwellrochester.com.